Hello, people. Isn't it interesting that there are faces that can brighten your day, and there are faces that can literally drain the life out of you? And it's because of I think it's because of the focus of the individual, of the weight that they're carrying. And it's important for us to be aware of that within ourselves, I believe. It's that, everything comes from within. I truly believe that. We choose to be happy. Yes, there are situations and circumstances that can ruin our day, our week, our month, our year. And it can be hard to sometimes to feel merry. But outside of external events, on a daily, weekly basis, we are in control of our vehicle, and we are in control of our emotions. We can choose to be happy. We can choose to focus on things to lift us, to brighten us, or we can focus on things that just are a negative and that just drag us down. And that's the same to be said of when, as I originally said, there are faces that can brighten your day and there are faces that can literally drain the life out of you. And generally it's because it probably isn't anything to do with you. It's just the stuff that they're carrying, and you can pick up on that energy and that deep thought process that they're having. It's almost like they're in a swamp and they just can't find anything to be happy about. And you engage with those people and you try to find a way to lift them up, but you find yourself being dragged into that swamp as well. And I think that's partly because, through my experience, I've found that the positive, and I like to think that I'm quite a positive person, it's very hard to bring the negative up. I always find that the negative will always drag the positive down. And so, I've always made a choice after experience of trying to, change that and realizing that I can't. I've always made a choice to remove myself from it, to avoid it. And that can be hard at times, because it could be within your home, it could be within your workplace, but you can still disassociate yourself with it because you change the meaning that you give it. And leave that with them. So, for instance, I used to go to a coffee shop regularly, and I used to love the coffee, but the atmosphere changed in the coffee shop. Something had happened within the team, and it was no longer a happy, vibrant place to be. It was very, very heavy and very depressive, and there was no longer the engagement with the regular clients and or the conversation. At first I thought, have I done something? Have I offended somebody? And then I kind of loosely heard that, there was just some internal stuff going on, and, people weren't very happy working there anymore, etc., which had an impact on the staff. And I kept going back, and yet, because I had to go daily. And I suddenly realized, what am I doing? Why am I putting myself through this? There are a million coffee shops where you can just make coffee at home. And so I found somewhere else to go. And immediately, that thought process, that weight, it just gone, because it's not my problem, it's theirs. And so it's important at times to find ways to remove yourself from it. I think obviously if it's in a situation where it's a relationship, then you need to address it, especially if it's your girlfriend, your fiance, your wife, or whatever, your husband. I think at times you have to sit down and have straight conversations around things, because if there is that kind of weight and that negativity, you need to address it, and you need to be adult about it, and just work out what's going on and how you can work with each other to alleviate that. And sometimes that's just by being honest. And at times, in extreme measures, it might mean that, well, maybe the relationship isn't in the right place and you need to find a way to move it forwards, or maybe it's time to go our separate ways. But it needs to be addressed. But when it's not, when it's not in your home, and it's not your partner by choice, because you choose who you want to be with. And if it's a situation where it's a shop that you go to frequently, like a coffee shop, find a different coffee shop. If it's in the workplace, it's relationship based, and it's about addressing those situations and having, I think, respectful and polite conversations with the individual. Obviously, if the individual is your boss, you should still address it. For instance, years and years ago, I worked in a sports centre, And there was one particular manager who, for whatever reason, found it his duty to remind me that he was the manager. He was my boss. And at the time, I was, I was a lifeguard and a kind of health club assistant. I was working my way through the ranks and trying to work out what I was going to do with my life. And it was kind of a stepping stone job. But while I was there, I gave 100%. I was always on time. I always did my job. And it was great because I got to do loads of courses as well in and around coaching and teaching, which was brilliant. And that was one of the reasons why I was there. But this particular individual would always find a way to try and publicly embarrass me or, remind me that he's the boss. And I remember I tolerated it for a couple of months. And then, sorry, my phone started ringing. I thought I'd switched it off. But anyway, I'm back to it. So this particular manager needed to remind me that he was the boss. And I remember I allowed it to go on for a few months. And then I thought about it. And at first I thought, well, maybe I should go and speak to his senior manager. But I thought, no, you know what? I'm gonna give him the opportunity to, address this before I take it any further. Also, he's my direct line of report, and I want to be respectful. So I remember it was one particular day. There were two ladies in the club that had stopped me and were asking me some information. It was quite a big health club. And he appeared from nowhere as always. And good evening, ladies. Cengiz, just why I remember, and listed off a list of jobs that I needed to be doing that evening. Just to remind me and to let the ladies know that he's the boss. And obviously I acknowledged it politely, professionally. I finished giving the ladies their directions and off they went. And I said, hey, let's call him John, for instance. I said, John, could I have a quick word with you? And he was like, yeah, what? I said, can we go into your office? So we went to the office. And I just said to him, hey, look, I've noticed these things over the last couple of months. And this is the things that you've said to me and, when you've said them and how you've said them. And this is the impact it's having on me. And I would appreciate it if you didn't do that anymore. If we could find a way to work together so that I'm not always made to feel that I'm of no value and that I am, I'm not embarrassed, even though I'm not embarrassed. But the fact that it's clearly you're doing things, or maybe you're unaware, but the things that you're doing are making me feel unappreciated and questioning whether or not I want to continue to work in this environment. And I think that I'm a really valid member of the team. I think I'm an asset to the club, and it would be a shame if I decide to remove myself from the business because of your actions. So I'm just asking you to take a moment to think about that. Now, bearing in mind at this time I was also a British kickboxing champion, so I was by no means a pushover. But I'm not using my physicality and my physical strength to get my way. I'm just addressing him as a human being and a kind of concerned member of staff who feels that my manager is kind of abusing his position. Anyway, after that conversation, everything changed, and he was as nice as pie to me, as supportive as could be. We became quite good friends, and I enjoyed my time at that club until I moved on to do other things. But so sometimes we have to stand up for ourselves, and it's interesting because sometimes you have to stand up inside yourself before you stand up externally in the real world. You've kind of got to have that conversation with yourself to address what's going on, to be aware of these negative relationships around you and the impact they're having on you. And then at times, if need be, stand up externally in the real world and confront the situation professionally, politely, and hopefully by doing so, you gain a level of respect from the person causing that, you certainly gain a huge amount of respect for yourself. And if it's a situation where it can be avoided, like not going to that coffee shop anymore, then just remove yourself from that situation and go somewhere else. But anyway, I've waffled on enough. I hope there was some value in there. But have a beautiful day, a beautiful week, and I will see you on the next one.